Hey, welcome back to World Entertainment, and this is going to be the full review of all 8 episodes. No, not each one individually, just the whole show as it is, for Amazon Prime's Fallout, based on the computer games. Now, you've probably seen all the reactions already, all the different reviews. There's a lot that love it, and there's also a lot that hate it. It seems to be very down the middle split, 50-50. The gamers and the fans are the ones who really don't seem to enjoy it all that much. A lot of the normies seem to enjoy it, somewhat at least. Now, I have no idea about the Fallout lore. Coming into this, I'm coming into it as a complete norm. I don't know anything about the games, the lore, anything like that. So I was basically going in blind into this, not knowing anything. And then after watching the first episode, I find out from a few people who played the games a couple of things that did seem to kind of show up in the show. So the show overall, was it good? Was it bad? Is it worth watching? Is it not worth watching? Did it work? Did it not work? Is it woke? Is it not woke? All that good stuff. Well, for me personally, I really don't know how I properly feel about the show. Whether to say I think it's good or bad. I'm kind of indifferent at the moment. I probably have to sit with it a bit longer and think about it. I suppose, does the good outweigh the bad for me with it? Almost. I think the end does. The last episode and a couple of the episodes does outweigh the bad, like the good stuff in it, but there is a lot of bad in it. And the main aspect of the garbage for me, and I've seen a lot of people say this as well, is the character of Maximus. His character is atrocious. It's a terrible character. It's a completely unlikable character. And to be honest, if you removed him from the show, it doesn't change the show. So he's a part of the Brotherhood. What are they called? They call the Brotherhood of Steel, I think, isn't it? Everything with him is terrible. But the main two characters that are likable and do keep you invested in the show, for me, was our main protagonist of Lucy, and the Ghoul, aka Cooper Howard, played by Walton Goggins. I always thought his name was Walter Goggins, but it's Walton Goggins. And Lucy is played by Ella Purnell. Is that her second name? So overall, it's an interesting show because, and that's the one thing, there's enough in there for me to keep me interested in wanting to see the next episode. I found that watching the first episode, it was interesting in the vault. Once you meet Lucy and her brother, Norm, and the people down there, there's kind of interesting history to kind of learn about what's going on down there. But as soon as the first episode, as soon as it left there and went to Maximus, you're just like, ooh, this isn't interesting. Everything around Maximus was interesting. The likes of the Brotherhood and stuff was interesting. Yeah, until later on, it really isn't. But there was elements in there that was interesting. Where a lot of people would point and say, oh, see, it's just going to be woke crap. Lucy does get a bit of a girl boss kind of moment in the first episode. And Maximus' friend is a trans actor, actress, whatever. It's meant to be a guy. It's very clearly a woman who's probably only started taking hormones with her 5 o'clock shadow or 12 o'clock shadow, whatever you want to call it. And their interactions with each other are terrible. She, he, whatever it is, they're terrible as well. Horrible performance. Maximus is just a completely unlikable character. As soon as you meet him, he's getting his ass handed to him. And he's just full of jealousy and everything else. So his friend, whatever they're called, gets chosen to be this squire of one of the knights, the Brotherhood, the big metal suit things. I think it's called T60. It's either T60 or F60. I think it's a T60. The suits, those mech suit looking things, they're the knights and they're their squires basically. And he, whatever the hell it is, ends up with an injury because there's a razor blade in their boot and cuts the whole foot and up the leg off them. How you'd put your foot in that far, God knows. And of course the fingers pointed at Maximus, thinking, well, he obviously did it out of jealousy because they got promoted over him. But he takes their place, and then he watches the knight in the suit run away after being attacked by a bear and dies of his injuries. But Maximus could have saved him and doesn't, because the knight treats him like crap. He basically just watches him die to rob his suit. So there's nothing redeemable or likable about Max. And by the end of the show, he literally becomes Finn in Star Wars. And I do mean he literally becomes Finn. All he wants to do is find Lucy. When he finds her, it's like the end of Force Awakens. He gets taken out while she kind of has a bit of a boss moment almost. And when he comes through, all he does is call her name. All I could see was John Boyega going, Ray, Ray. In this case, it was Lucy, Lucy. So everything with him, terrible. Absolutely everything. Lucy, though, was a good character and an interesting character. The only problem is a couple of the moments where she gets a bit of boss level, you know. The first episode, when she gets attacked, they get attacked in her thing. She gets stabbed, and it's not like a small stab wound, it's a massive stab wound, and she just kind of walks off like it's nothing. And yet we then later see her stapling it, and you can see it's this big deep cut. Now apparently the stims, they have stims in this, apparently that helps, but they don't explain that or really show you that. So if you're not into the lore of the game, that's where that kind of falls apart. But she does get beaten by this big guy, and the one thing they did with her is that thing that I do like. She had to use the environment, things around her. The only issue is some of the smack she was getting, she should have been out cold, and she wasn't. And the only thing other than the stab wound when he eventually stabs her that she walks away with is one little cut on her lip. And you're kind of like, really? That's something that's annoying me with modern day things. You know, like if you watch a car crash in a movie nowadays, like Fast and Furious or something, they just jump out of the car and walk away, and barely a cut on them. You compare that to the old days, a car could only hit another car, and they would fall out of the car, and there'd be blood everywhere, and So everything though with Lucy is interesting. You really kind of are interested in the vault until the second episode. The second episode, the vault stuff, she's not in it. She leaves the vault by the end of the first episode to go find her father, who gets kidnapped. And then once it goes back to the vault when she's out on the surface to the brother Norm and stuff, only in the second episode up to about the end of that episode in the vault, the vault stuff wasn't working for me this time. It was like, this stuff's not working. Everything with, again, the ghoul, Cooper, Walton Goggins is great as well. You get the flashbacks of him and when he was Cooper Howard, and when he's the ghoul, obviously Ford. So to understand that, and this, they do explain this, I won't do because I won't spoil it. The one thing that was confusing was the very start of the show is him and his daughter doing a birthday party for another kid, and they're talking about, you keep seeing news reports about are the nukes gonna drop, And when they're leaving the party, the nukes drop. And immediately from there, once we go to the vault, it comes up and says 219 years later. But we know he's the ghoul, and you're kind of like, 219? How is he still alive? They do explain that. And they explain other stuff relating to that. You know, they kind of play it where you're not 100% sure whether he's meant to, if the ghoul is meant to be him as Cooper back in the day. But it is. The vault stuff gets interesting. Now, the vault stuff, the thing they kind of play on that I heard is in the game that kind of gets alluded to in this was I believe in the game they did, one of the vaults did where the overseer, every time an overseer got chosen, they were sacrificed. So nobody in this particular vault wanted to be the overseer. They kind of do that with this. They don't seem to do the execution or sacrifice or anything. But Norm discovers that Vault 31 to 33, all the overseers are all from the same vault to the same vault. And he kind of wonders about that. There's stuff with the Vault 32 that is what leads to kind of the show starting, really. That what I think they call scavengers or raiders, sorry, from the surface come through there. They give you an explanation later about how they did that, but not fully again, which is interesting, until the last episode. There's a couple of episodes in the middle that kind of drag a bit, especially I think it's episode 3 and episode 5, I think, that kind of spend a bit too much time with Maximus. One of the episodes is, I think it was episode 6. Weird things happened in the sense of how did each person keep getting ahead of each other when it made no sense. So, like, Lucy and Maximus leave this particular area to go to the observatory in Los Angeles. They're well ahead of the ghoul, and yet they end up in one area, but the ghoul all of a sudden is well ahead of them. But then they're kind of ahead of him again, and you're kind of, how are they constantly, is this bad editing, or what way did they do this? There's no way they should be getting ahead of each other all the time. And they're following this guy, Fadus or something I think he's called, who has an injured leg, and yet none of them can catch up to him for some reason. Ironically, they do when his leg is healed. It's like, okay, but again, there's enough in there to keep you interested to see what the next episode is and where the story goes. Everything with Lucy works. She was likable, good character. The ghoul, aka Cooper Howard, good character, interesting, and an interesting backstory, especially with his family dynamic. Her brother, Lucy's brother, Norm, he starts off where you're kind of like, oh, is he just going to be this pathetic person? And he becomes likable by the end of the second episode. Everything about Maximus and the people kind of around him, garbage. Absolute garbage. The stuff in the vault, interesting. The kind of secrets and stuff that's found out down there, interesting. The backstory, when you go back in 200 years before the bombs dropped and stuff, interesting. There's interesting stories there. Don't know how much of it all works along in the games. I know there's something with this, is it called Shady Sands or something, the town, that apparently in this show they've somewhat retconned or something, and apparently a lot of people aren't happy about that. By the way, there's people trying to say it's more of a an adaptation of the game. It's not actually based fully on the game. That's not actually true, because they have said that this show is canon to the games. So it is what is meant to be the games. This story that is being told now in 8 episodes is 100% canon. So if they're changing things, it must be changing in the games, which apparently is something Bethesda is doing, because the other company that did the Las Vegas one, whatever, New Las Vegas, had a bigger hit of a game than Bethesda did with them, and it sounds like jealousy or something. Again, there's enough in there to keep me keep you interested anyway, to want to see the next episode. It's the question of, does it work and does it not? I don't know. I don't feel like it's a type of show I'd go back and watch again. Maybe, especially knowing where it goes and how it ends. It's just kind of, I think we've been so inundated with crap lately that if something is just meh, we kind of, we don't look at it horribly, but we don't look at it great either. I can see why a lot of people would like it. I can also see why a lot of people wouldn't like it. There are some very stupid moments. By the way, the music choices in it are weird. Like, old timey music keeps happening in the weirdest of places as well, and a lot of Johnny Cash. But the same song from Johnny Cash happens over and over, which just starts getting annoying, but it's also very strange where and when they put the music, like that type of music. There's a flashback with Maximus that you see about 20 times, which, as soon as you see it, the first thing you think of is Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, because it's him as a kid climbing out of a fridge after the nukes to see one of the brothers, Brotherhood T-60s standing there, and we literally see that shot over and over and over again. It's like, yeah, we get it. And if people want to praise that scene or think that's a good scene, then you gotta reevaluate your opinion of Indiana Jones being stuck in the fridge when the nuke goes off in Crystal Skull, because it's the same thing, with a big difference. You can clearly see there's a big hole for a vent in that fridge, so the kid would have been cooked. Overall, with the look of the show, like, it looks great. The visuals look good. The sets are great. The vault sets are fantastic. The outer world, like the surfing stuff, a lot of that works very well. A lot of it's just desert, but there's other parts where it looks really good. But the vault stuff looks great. So overall, what would I actually give this show out of 10? I would probably give it a 6.5 out of 10. Again, I wouldn't praise it, but I'm not going to crap all over it either, because it's not terrible, but it's not great either, in my opinion. And it's just my opinion. I know there's a lot of people who really enjoyed it. Again, for me, there's a lot of very dumb decisions made in it. Stuff that's just kind of done for convenience. And there are some kind of girl boss moments that are a bit kind of ugh. But other than that, again, there's enough in there to kind of keep you interested. So, if you've seen it, let us know in the comments what you think of it. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Are you a fan of the games who watched it? Do you think it was true to the games? Do you think it has destroyed the games, the story-wise, Let us know in the comments. And with that, I will leave it there for this one. So cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.